What if the thing holding you back isn't your life? It's your mind. Not your situation, not your opportunities, not even your discipline. Just the way you think. Because if you're honest, you've had moments where you knew exactly what to do. You knew the right decision, the better choice, the productive path. And still, you didn't take it. You delayed. You avoided. You distracted yourself. And afterward, you couldn't even explain why. That's the part that gets frustrating. Because it's not confusion. It's conflict. A quiet fight inside your own head. One part of you wants to grow, to focus, to become better. And another part just wants comfort. Easy, familiar, safe. And most days, comfort wins. Not because it's stronger, but because it's automatic. Now here's the question most people don't ask. Why does your mind work against you, even when you want better? Think about that for a second, because the answer changes everything. But first, let's be real about something. You're not lazy, you're not weak, and you're definitely not broken. You're just untrained. Your mind has been running on patterns you never chose, reactions you never questioned, habits you never built consciously. And over time, those patterns became your default. So now, even when you try to change, you fall back. Not because you can't move forward, but because your mind keeps pulling you back. And that's where it hits you. This isn't about what I do, it's about how I think. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. Because suddenly, everything starts to make sense. Why you procrastinate, why you overthink, why you start things and don't finish. It's not random, it's mental. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because if your mind is the problem, then your mind also has to be the solution. And that means responsibility, not blame. Responsibility. And that's heavy. Because now, you can't say, I'll fix it later. You can't wait for motivation. You can't depend on external things to change first. It starts with you, with how you think, with how you respond, with how you control your attention. Now here's a quiet thought. How much of your life is controlled by thoughts you didn't even choose? Think about it. The doubts, the fears, the distractions, the negative loops. They show up automatically, and you follow them, almost without noticing. So you don't just lose time, you lose direction. And slowly, you start feeling stuck. Not physically, mentally. And that feeling? That's the one that drains you the most. Because no matter how much potential you have, if your mind isn't under control, none of it matters. Now here's where things start to shift. Because control doesn't mean stopping your thoughts. That's impossible. Control means choosing which thoughts you follow. Let that sink in. Because that's a completely different game. You're not trying to silence your mind. You're learning to lead it. And that changes everything. But wait till you hear this. Most people don't fail because they think negatively. They fail because they believe every thought they have. Every doubt feels real. Every distraction feels justified. Every delay feels reasonable. And over time, those small choices build a life you didn't intend. So the real skill isn't thinking positive. It's thinking intentionally. Choosing your thoughts instead of being chosen by them. Now let me ask you something. Be honest. How many times has your own mind talked you out of something that could have changed your life? A decision, an action, an opportunity. And in that moment, it felt logical, safe, reasonable. But later, it felt like regret. Because deep down, you knew you could have done more. And that's the pain most people carry quietly. Not failure, but missed potential. Now here's a shared truth most people won't admit. I know I'm capable of more. I just can't seem to unlock it. If that feels familiar, you're not alone. But more importantly, you're not stuck. You're just not in control yet. And that's the shift. Because once you control your mind, everything else becomes possible. Not easy, but possible. And that's all you need. Now here's where the real journey begins. Because understanding this is one thing, living it is another. And this next part, This is where most people give up. This is the shift that makes everything stick. Not for a day, not for a week, but long enough to actually change who you are. You stop trying to control your mind, and you start becoming the person who does. That sounds subtle, but it changes everything. Because as long as control feels like something you have to do, you'll eventually stop doing it. But when it becomes who you are, you don't question it anymore. You don't debate it. You don't negotiate with yourself. You just act. Now here's the part most people overlook. Identity isn't built through thinking. It's built through evidence. Repeated actions, kept promises, consistent behavior. So every time you choose focus over distraction, you're not just being disciplined, you're proving something to yourself. I'm someone who stays in control. Every time you pause instead of reacting, you're reinforcing it. I don't follow every thought. And slowly, that identity becomes real. Not something you say, something you are. But here's where it gets real, because this isn't about perfection. You will slip. You will get distracted. You will have days where your mind feels messy again. That doesn't mean you lost control. It means you're human. The difference now is you don't stay there. You notice it faster. You correct it quicker. You return to control. That's growth. Not avoiding mistakes, recovering from them. Now here's something most people won't admit. I expect myself to be perfect and quit when I'm not. If that feels familiar, you're not alone. But that expectation, it's what keeps you stuck. Because perfection creates pressure, and pressure creates avoidance. So instead, you lower the expectation of perfection and raise the standard of return. You don't ask, did I mess up? You ask, how fast did I get back on track? That's control. That's consistency. That's identity. Now imagine this. You wake up, and your first thought isn't chaos, it's clarity. You sit down to work, and your mind doesn't fight you. It follows you. You go through your day, and you're not constantly distracted, not constantly pulled away. You're present, focused, in control. That life, it's not far away. It's just built differently. One thought at a time, one decision at a time, one day at a time. Now here's a question that might hit deeper than expected. If you had full control of your mind, what would you finally do? Think about it. Not what sounds impressive, what feels real. The things you've been delaying, avoiding, postponing. Because deep down, you know you could. If your mind didn't get in the way. So what's stopping you now? Is it really your situation, or is it your thoughts about it? Don't answer quickly. Just sit with it. Because that question alone can change how you see everything. Now here's the truth. You don't need more time. You don't need more motivation. You don't need a perfect plan. You need control over your thoughts, over your attention, over your actions. Because once you have that, everything else becomes easier. Not effortless, but possible. And possible is powerful. Because once something feels possible, you move, you act, you grow. And growth builds confidence, real confidence. Not loud, not forced, quiet, stable, unshakable. The kind that doesn't come from what you say, but from what you consistently do. And that's what most people are actually chasing. not success, not achievement. Control. The ability to direct their own life, instead of being pulled in every direction. So let's bring this back to you, right now. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Because change doesn't happen in big moments. It happens in small ones. The next thought you choose, the next action you take, the next distraction you ignore. That's where your new life begins. Not all at once, but step by step, choice by choice. Until one day, you look back and realize something quietly powerful. You're not the same person anymore. Not because everything around you changed, but because you did. You became someone who leads their mind, not someone who follows it. And that's what it means to truly take control. If this hits something real in you, don't just move on. Stay with it. And if you want more like this, subscribe and keep choosing the version of you that you know you're capable of becoming.